All right, all right. Welcome to the first official Senate podcast of 2021-2022 season. As always, I am your host, Keeds, or FPL Differential Daniel. Our other host, Lucy, is on daddy duty, so he's going to be off for a while. But, we've got our old host, Nickoo, back.
Nope. Glad to be back. Thanks for the invite, Keeds.
It's great to have you back, Nickoo. It's been a while. And we also have our resident Irish guru, Fionn.
Always lovely to be here. Thank you.
That's great, guys. All right. It's approaching game week 2 tomorrow night. Is the deadline. What are your guys' initial thoughts after the first game week? Any sort of glaring things that we need to discuss?
Okay, I'll go first, I guess. I think what a game week to start off the season. I think nobody was expecting that. I think I can safely say. I did pretty well this week. I think we'll talk about it a little bit about our teams itself, but I think glaring things would be I think a lot of other podcasts are also talking about it, but the return of home advantage. I think that'd be quite interesting to look at this season with the crowds coming back and how big of a home advantage teams will have.
Yeah, 100%. You could definitely see that for some teams, having the crowds back definitely gave them a huge boost. Like things like Watford, for instance, who we never expected them to be able to just outclass Aston Villa at both ends of the pitch for 90 minutes. That was incredible for me. Fionn, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it was a pretty cracking game week to start things off. I mean, it feels pretty rare that, especially after game week 1, there's so little transfer discussion. It feels like well over half of like FPL Twitter and kind of anyone involved is like rolling their transfers. There's not really much. Everyone's kind of very happy with their teams for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that too. It's like I'm looking at my team and I'm struggling to find things that I really desperately need to fix. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty happy with it for the most part. I think for the first couple of weeks, I won't be taking many hits, if at all, or bar like the emergency. If someone gets COVID or someone gets rested or benched or injured, I can't really see myself taking too many drastic sort of changes for the early goings, which is good. It's positive signs.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to a few weeks of everyone, myself included, getting reality checked by FPL. We're looking at 20-point average next week.
Probably bound to happen at some stage, isn't it? Just hope it's going to be later on, not now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely bound to happen, but I mean, because right now everybody, I think we're averaging 90-something or something crazy like that. So, I mean, looking at your 90-something team, you're going to bound to have so many returners from the first week. So, yeah, I agree. I think most people will be relatively happy with their team. Plus, they probably set out their team to start out at least a few game weeks. So, I don't think many people will be making big changes going into game week 2.
Yeah, I think the league average of the top 50 of our league was like 100, which is just outrageous, really. So if you look on the screen, this is our Battle Royale template for this season. I know some of the people in the group are quite confused at some of the changes I made this year. Obviously, last season we only started. That was a new sort of concept I developed around halfway through the season. So it was kind of a shorter version. I decided to sort of elongate it over the course of this season. So as you can see, we've got everyone on the left-hand side. And for the first, 9 or so game weeks, we're going to start eliminating 2 at a time. And then from then on, it'll just be the lowest ranked team still in gets eliminated each week until we have a winner by game week 38. I know last year we started doing like 2 at a time, the whole time almost. And that was was good in some aspects, but also bad. I want to give some people a fair sort of go. And who knows how we'll end up this year. I do feel for James, who admittedly he forgot to check his team and set his team before the deadline. So he just had a complete autofill and he just fucked it.
Yeah, that's kind of
And not a
unfortunate to
good
start
week
the
to have
season.
an autofill team.
Yeah, sorry, James.
Had to happen to somebody.
It's a shame Lucian couldn't make it today, given he was a team leader here.
I know, it's the first time ever he's won a center of the game week, and he can't join us for the podcast. It's one of life's
And he,
cruel.
he loves the battle royale too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Battle Royale is really fun. I mean, 109, what a game week by Lucian, but it's okay. We can sing his praises and he can hear it later on.
Yeah, he's with us in spirit always. Okay, now let's look at our league table after game week 1. As you can see, Lucian is firmly on top, 3 points clear of Harvard, who's also a former champion. Dinu, another former champion, is in 4th place, or 2nd, technically tied. Cyrus, another former champion. Then we have our own Nickoo. So let's go in and check his team. So as you can see, it's kind of template. He did start Ben White, which was kind of a down to start the game week, I would imagine. But the main thing I want to talk about here is the lack of Kostas Tsimikas. You instead opted to go for the triple sort of TAA, Salah, and Diogo Jota, which actually worked out for you. I'm very happy with that worked out for you. So talk me through why you opted to go with him instead of going with the cheaper sort of 4.0 starter that everyone wanted to have.
Yeah, so, obviously not happy about the Ben White choice there, but going to game week 1, Arsenal starting their campaign against Brentford, I wasn't too sold on the whole Brentford idea to begin with, because I have not watched much of them. So naturally, against a promoted team, I think that was the right thing to do. Can't really be too unhappy with Ayling on the bench with 6 because they were playing United anyway. He scored a screamer, so it doesn't happen every day. Okay, so about my Liverpool decision, I struggled with that quite a lot. I think I'm not the only one, but Tsimikas was an interesting one because I felt that coming into game week 1, I didn't want to double up on the Liverpool defense because, Virgil just came back from a long injury, and I wasn't too sure who he's going to line up with in central defense. So I was a little concerned about Liverpool's defense as a whole, and I was just going to give them a bit of time to bed in. So I would my idea was, okay, if I start with 2 and they concede a stupid goal or a careless goal that's both clean sheets down the drain due to 1 goal. So that was my thought. Also, I really liked how Jota had a lot of minutes to start the preseason. I think he was looking good. Other than obviously that last game where Firmino played and scored 2, I believe, but Jota seemed pretty firm on to start in the front 3. So for me, I think I decided to go with the strong Liverpool attack there.
Yeah, that's good. Jota is a very good pick. I do think he's going to get subbed early quite often, which is the risk you take with such big as a strong team as Liverpool's front 3, obviously. But coming into game week 4, I've heard rumours that some of the South American players like Firmino, like Richarlison, etc., who go on to play for Brazil in the international break will have to actually quarantine for 2 weeks upon return, which means they will miss game week 4 and potentially 5 as well. So that means you will probably get, something Firmino being out, you might get almost 90 minutes out of Diogo Jota in that week, which could be a huge differential move, I say, for you. I reckon I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm a little. I think I got quite lucky there. I wasn't really planning for that game week 4 South America thing. I don't really know who's gonna go and for how long. I think the quarantine, I heard it's about 10 days. You said 2 weeks, so I'm not sure what it is. I mean, the UK is probably playing it by year as well, according to the situation. So we'll have to see when we get there. But yeah, if Jota gets more minutes because of that, I mean, I got lucky then.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your plans for Mason Greenwood? He obviously tore it up on his first week, starting up front. Some of us thought that Martial would get the nod and he would start on the right wing, but you actually lucked out there and he started up top. How long do you reckon he'll keep starting there until, say, Edison Cavani is back fit and firing?
I think that's a great question. I don't really know myself for sure. I think even if Martial started up front and Greenwood on the right, I wouldn't have been too unhappy. I think Greenwood is deadly coming off the right or up top. I think he could have easily scored more points, actually, in game week 1. I think he was a bit unlucky to not get that assist for Pogba, but he was also very active, making runs everywhere. So I think any other game he could have gotten maybe 1 or 2 more returns. Yes, the problem is his minutes. I think Cavani is coming back soon, but not that soon. I believe in game week 1 he was still there were still pictures of him back home with his family resting. And given Cavani's age, I think he might come in and do like a rotation with Greenwood up front, maybe with Martial as well. Sancho is definitely going to start, I think, on right wing, given he was given minutes last game week, as well as he played the friendly against Burnley, the closed door friendly. Although rumor was that Sancho played left wing for that closed friendly, so it might be interesting to see how we set up the team. But generally, I think Greenwood played well enough to keep his spot in the team. Just a matter of where he would end up playing for game week 2. The moment he gets dropped, though, I might have to consider dropping him, especially since I'm sure we talk about it later, but there are a lot of budget to mid-tier mids that have emerged that I could very well easily change to.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's move on to the next person down, which is Fionn. Just shy of Nickoo's score with 103, very respectable score. And it's quite a similar looking team. Obviously, you had Costas Tsimikas in there. I want to talk about these guys, Rafinha and Mahrez. What is your plan? What is your plan to put those guys beyond? They also didn't do very well in game week 1.
Yeah, well, the easier one to start with would be Rafinha, which is just no worries there. That's I did not buy him to play Man United once and then ship him off. He's just for me, he's way underpriced. Definitely an easy hold. The only thing I'd be worried about is, of course, the internationals with Brazil. We'll have to see how that plays out, but I'm looking forward to the next few weeks for Rafinha. And then Mahrez is obviously kind of a bit more difficult because his minutes are always in question and City look awful, really bad. But I'm obviously holding Mahrez for the Norwich game, and he's strongly predicted to start in any City form you look at. So but I could definitely see with 2 free transfers going into game week 3, I could see possibly Mahrez making way for Son or something like that, depending. Yeah, but holding both of them for game week 2, Mahrez probably just short term, and then Rafinha I hope for long term.
Yeah, Mahrez did look kind of dangerous, and I don't know, could he be the potential differential captain option for this week against Norwich? Would you be against that?
I would be against that, for my own team. I mean, I'd probably put him as out of those, I'd rank Salah, Bruno, then Mahrez. I'm happy to own Mahrez, definitely, but he's obviously not a terrible captain pick, but I just don't see the big enough upside versus, I think Salah is just really the one.
Yeah, I do think Kevin De Bruyne might be contention to start this week as well, after coming off the bench last week, and obviously Ilkay Gundogan is out this week as well. I do know there's some people out there in the Senate who don't have one of Bruno or Salah, so that's why I asked, would you potentially consider Mahrez as a way to sort of buck that trend and sort of make up ground that they would have lost from not owning one of those two guys last week?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't be worried about making up ground this early on with like rogue picks, but if I didn't have Salah and it was between Bruno and Mahrez, I'd maybe consider it, yeah. But obviously some people will disagree, but I think Salah is clear cut this week, and I think he's a level above even Bruno, really. But I definitely don't despise it as a pick if you didn't have Salah. And if you had KDB, that would be an entirely different consideration, because we know what KDB is like if he's playing.
I don't even know what KDB's ownership is like, since he was expected to be out for quite a while. I would actually be pretty high. So if you did own him, then kudos. You might as well take a gamble on it. Benrahma and Antonio, the guys from West Ham, your club, they actually ripped it up and now are quite popularly owned now. So what are your thoughts on those guys? Kudos to owning both of them. I sold Antonio prior to deadline, and I only ended up with Benrahma.
Yeah, obviously, like, I'm delighted with the way they've worked out. I mean, like, it's obviously worked out much better than I actually ever imagined, really, especially in game week 1. And I don't know if either of you watched the first half, but it wasn't looking bright for West Ham. It was looking reminiscent of Newcastle game week 1 last season, but it was brilliant, yeah. And Benrahma's obviously become a huge across like FPL Twitter and stuff. He's become a real, you'd nearly call him the template budget midfielder at this point. But they both looked really dangerous, and definitely just, I feel like a lot of people have them, so there's not much to say in terms of I wouldn't worry about getting rid of them or anything anytime soon.
So we'll look at Antonio's ownership. It's currently owned by 27.9%. That's still, I mean, it's not like must-have worthy, but it's definitely a very popular pick. So for guys like me who don't own Antonio, do you think I should be rushing to get him in, or just leave it as it is?
Who are your strikers again?
My strikers are Wilson, Ings, and Bamford.
I wouldn't be particularly rushing, but I don't see, because you have that fixed return for Ings after game week 3, that could be an easy swap for you.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if Antonio's fit, he's putting up like some of the best numbers in the league. When I say best numbers, I mean like best expected numbers, because the amount of easy chances he misses, or like he should have had so many more points this weekend, the way it worked out. But yeah, no, Antonio is still I think the better pick than Benrahma. Overall, if he's fit, he's the guy to have. Yeah,
Antonio definitely is someone that I am furious myself of not sticking with. However, his injury history just doesn't seem right to have him, as well as Ings, as well as Callum Wilson, guys who are known to break like at least twice a season. It was kind of a risk management kind of thing, but it's probably backfired for me. But I do have faith that Bamford will come good, especially because Everton this week, who looked very, very poor defensively in pre-season and against Southampton last week. So we'll see how that goes.
I'd love the Bamford and Wilson picks, especially. I think both of them are good, and Bamford will definitely come good.
Yeah. I find it interesting that all three of us own Callum Wilson, who's someone who's wasn't really talked about that much during pre-season. So I'm surprised that all three of us own him.
I have a kind of like a hard bias against Callum Wilson. I feel like he's hurt me quite a lot in FPL, but in the week leading up to the deadline, I kind of tried to clear my head a bit, and just kind of, the more I looked at it, the less I wanted Toney and the more I wanted Wilson, and it just all started making sense in my head. And then I saw the West Ham fixture game week 1, and was the quickest transfer in ever.
Yeah, he does love scoring against West Ham. I remember his first ever goals in the Premier League were against West Ham, and I owned him when he was playing for that Bournemouth, and he scored a hat trick that game as well. So I know he loves scoring against West Ham. It's just one of his bogey things. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you mentioned how like Wilson seems to always like burn people. He's burned me a lot of times, and he's always been on my never again list. And so I was never considering until about a few hours before deadline, and I just had a thought. He always seems to start off the season in a ball of fire, gets loads of points, trap people into getting to buying him, and then he goes poorly. So how to circumvent that? You just start with him, have him for those big points at the start, and then get rid of him when people start getting on. Do you guys not agree?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting way to think about it. I was quite surprised that I went with Wilson to start the season as well. I think, as you said, he can be a pretty so-called trappy player for a lot of us. I think one big reason I decided to go with him instead of Antonio was because I wasn't sure if we're going to see the same West Ham as we did see second half of last season. Were they going to kick off straight away? So, I wasn't too keen on doubling up with both Benrahma and Antonio. So I was like, I think Wilson might be a pretty good one to start. Then again, Newcastle is not exactly a team that was going to light up the league. Willock is not back in the team yet. So I wasn't too sure. But, I mean, after I chose him and seeing how they played against West Ham, I didn't feel too bad. Yes, he did. He got outscored by Antonio. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Wilson got his goal against West Ham. And, yeah, he has pretty nice fixtures going forward. So I'm not too unhappy. Also, Keeds, just to let you know, I think Patrick Bamford just signed a new 5-year contract about a few hours ago. So, yeah, that's a good sign for you. He might play harder with the new contract this coming game week.
Yeah. The reason I like Patrick Bamford as an FPL player is that he always captains himself. So he always has that sort of inner motivation to do well for himself rather than for his team. If that makes sense. It's that sort of selfish player that he likes to make a chance for himself and get points for himself. So hopefully we can reap benefits of that as well. That being said, Leeds did look kind of average all through preseason. I'm not going to hide away from that. It's no surprise they conceded 5 last week to I don't know they were a massive class apart, but Leeds for the most part they just looked like a shadow of the team they were last season. But Patrick Bamford was the only player that actually looked like they actually wanted to play. So that's why I picked him over Rafinha. I do think Rafinha has a bit of ring rust that needs a couple of weeks to settle in.
I don't think Leeds are the kind of team that get particularly disheartened by a result like that. They're the kind of team that gets battered 5-1 and then they'll batter 5-1. That's kind of...
Yeah, that's why Bielsa plays.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the likes of obviously with more time to think between game week 1 and 2, you kind of start looking at players who blanked, but realistically the likes of Rafinha, Bamford and those kind of players, you're just trying to take everything into consideration and realize that they're playing United. You aren't looking at just one game when you bought them. So
yeah. Fionn, you mentioned going for Callum Wilson instead of Ivan Toney, for instance. I want to talk about Ivan Toney because he had a very interesting game against Arsenal last week. He had 0 shots at all, not on target, off target at all. 0 shots, but was still man of the match. So is that kind of what we're going to see from him this season, or is he still going to be? He's a very, very popular pick, and people are expecting 30 goals as he scored last year. Should people sort of rein in their expectations a little bit?
I still think he's a good pick. It's just definitely he was the highest known forward I think going into game week 1. So people obviously had huge expectations based off. I think I don't know if you want to call it a bandwagon, but it's kind of this kind of steam builds up in people's heads that it's going to be any goal that Brentford scored, Toney has to be involved in. But it's rarely the case with any striker in a promoted team that they hit the ground running completely. I mean, like, Bamford's obviously the most recent one to have done it, and no one actually expected it of him. I wouldn't be too worried as a Toney. Well, having no shots is kind of worrying, but I mean, still they played Arsenal and they have a few good fixtures coming up, so I think I could see Toney scoring a few in the coming weeks.
Yeah. From watching the Brentford and Arsenal game, as hurtful as it was, being an Arsenal fan, the link up between Toney and Brian Mbeumo sort of resembled the partnership between Kane and Son from last year. You know what I mean? How Kane dropped deep, he'd flick it on to Son, making a deep run. It kind of felt like he was doing the same thing for Toney, flicking it on to Brian Mbeumo, who was getting most of the chances. So do you think we got something to watch out for in the future?
Yeah, I think that Mbeumo's one to talk about too, but I think especially just the way Brentford weren't really chasing the game because they'd taken the lead and obviously got a double, but Toney was playing very deep and things like that. But I think we know Brentford are a very attacking side, and that's why a lot of people have Toney. And I think if we see them playing someone like Norwich or Watford or whomever, and they need to chase a goal or it's a high-scoring game, I think you're going to see Toney much higher up the pitch getting shots, whereas I'm sure they were very keen on getting those 3 points on the opening day and defending their lead.
Definitely someone to watch out for. If you don't own him, definitely watch him. If you do own him, you're obviously hoping for bigger things in the coming weeks, which is good. Their goalkeeper, David Raya, I don't know how he slipped under the radar of so many people. Like, no offense to Sanchez, but looking at his fixtures now, they don't look as... I think we're all trapped. We're all duped. Look, they've got Watford this week, who absolutely killed it last week. Then they have Everton, who have some good attacking players themselves. Then Brentford, then Leicester, who are a good attacking team too. They're okay fixtures, but not the best. Whereas you look at someone like David Raya, who has Palace this week, Villa next week, then Brighton, then Wolves. I think we missed a really, really good gem there.
I think that's interesting. And I'm not one to jump onto bandwagons too quick. So as well as Brentford looked against Arsenal, I think being a prominent team is never easy. I think it's easy to say, oh, they're going to be the next Leeds. But, let's maybe calm down a little bit for now. I think we'll see how Brentford goes along over the season. And yes, I think David Raya is an interesting choice to look down the road. Maybe if you are considering an early wild card, and by then Sanchez and the Brighton team is just looking bad, you could possibly go that direction. But I think it's not something that I'm personally considering. I'm definitely keeping certain people on the watch list, like Mbeumo. I think that's how I pronounce it. Mbeumo. I think he played so far up the field at 5.5. I think that's worth looking at. But yeah, for me, I'm not gonna jump onto that Brentford bandwagon just yet.
Yeah, it's fair play. Okay, so let's go into transfer talk. I know I don't think many transfers have even happened, but Nickoo, Fionn, did you guys have any transfers this week, or are you guys holding both your trades?
I'm definitely holding my transfer, barring any last-minute injuries.
And Nickoo?
Yeah, I think I texted you a while ago. I did toss up the idea of bringing Antonio in, whether that could be dangerous going forward without him. But I think I would end up banking as well with West Ham playing a hard game at Leicester. I mean, not at Leicester, but Leicester's coming to West Ham, so that's not going to be too easy for him, I feel. At the same time, I think having 2 transfers next week would be a lot better than just knee-jerking Antonio in after 1 week.
Mm. So I actually made a transfer this week. I traded out my boy Nickoo Pepe. Obviously, he has his next two fixtures are against Chelsea and Man City. So I thought he's just going to keep falling in price. I will jump off now and reassess later how the Arsenal team fares better. Maybe when the introduction of Odegaard, potentially another striker, who knows. But those fixtures from game week 4 look absolutely divine, and so I was sort of on the fence of whether to start holding through those two tough fixtures. But then I decided, look, there are other players killing it. I may as well just jump on now, and if he starts killing it, we'll revisit that later. It was a sort of a 1 week punt that didn't really work out, but yeah, I had sort of higher hopes for him at the start of the week, which didn't really pan out. So I sold him for Ismail Assar from Watford. He really, really impressed me last week. I was getting mad FOMO the entire game, really. He just had Matt Target on toast that first half, and he looked absolutely phenomenal. He's a talisman of that team. I think he scored 13 goals and something like 10 assists in the Championship last year. And the last time he was in the Premier League, he also ripped it up too. So, he is proven, and he is going to be a good player, and I do have good hopes for him. So I brought him in. He's a 6.0, so I banked 1.5 from the Pepe to Star transfer. That 1.5, I have a couple of plans for the next few weeks. Potentially to fund maybe a Lukaku trade in later, or a Harry Kane or a Heung-min Son, someone. But we'll see how it goes in the coming weeks. But yeah, so that's my trade this week. I traded Pepe for Sar. What do you guys think of that?
I think that's a really interesting thing that we didn't really talk about earlier about you starting with Pepe. I'm not sure if a big decision for that was when you heard that Laka and Alba would be out for that game. So naturally, Pepe would be at the center of most attacks for Arsenal. I don't think it's a bad decision. I think obviously on hindsight, people might say, hey, why did you do that? But to me, it's fine. I think it's an interesting game week 1 punt that unfortunately didn't work out. But I think you're reacting quite well to it by moving into Sar. I think Sar is definitely one that is on my watch list right now. Once again, I think I'm not going to jump into promoted teams too quickly. Yes, he has been in the Premier League, so I think people know what he's made of and what he can do. But I do think there'll become a point where Watford will struggle. So it's just a matter of when, not if. So we'll see when that is, and hopefully, coming fresh into the Premier League, they're all rearing to go, and Sar would would produce some good performances in the next few game weeks for you.
Yeah. Okay. And Fionn?
Yeah, I like the transfer a lot. I probably would have got rid of Pepe myself, and then looking at your team, the toss-up would have been between Sar and Rafinha, I would say. And I don't know who I would have chosen, but I definitely like Sar, and he's definitely on the watch list, especially I think he has Brighton, Spurs next, but then the fixtures after that, I think he has 3 or 4 really good fixtures. So definitely on my watch list too. Ismail Sarr looks very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
wait, Keith, would you not have considered one of Greenwood or Jota?
I couldn't get Jota because I have Kostas Tsimikas as my third Liverpool player.
Yeah, that makes sense. I forgot about that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And Greenwood, for the same reason I mentioned earlier, I do think he's a temporary sort of pick. He's great now, but his minutes there's too many questions to me going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think I forgot about you mentioned about the Lukaku upgrade. So having some money in the bank might be good going forward, actually.
Okay. Let's move on to our predictions for this coming game week. We've gone ahead of time and picked 4 games who we think are really interesting fixtures this weekend, and in turns we take our turns to pick our scoreline and one or 2 players who we think might go double digits in FPL this week. So the first one we'll go for Aston Villa and Newcastle. I think it's a fixture that applies to most of us, seeing as most of us own Wilson as well as potentially Ings as well. So yeah. So who do you go for?
Sure, I can start out then. Aston Villa, Newcastle. That's an interesting one. I think it will be slightly cagey to start with, but I could see goals in this. I'm going 3-1 Aston Villa.
3-1 Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, and Fionn?
I think I would be leaning towards like a 1-1.
1-1 draw. And for me, I'm gonna say 2-2. I think there's definitely goals, you know. A couple of leaky defenses in there, so we'll see how it goes. All right. As for Leeds and Everton, who do you guys think? What do you guys think the score will be for them? Fionn, why don't you go first this time?
I fancy Leeds to go 2-1 here. Yeah, I'll go 2-1 Leeds.
Yeah. For me, I think it's going to be, I'll say 3-1 to Leeds. And Nickoo?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit differential here. I think Leeds might continue to struggle, and I have a weird feeling that Everton is going to do better than most people expect, with both Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin already playing. So I'm going 2-1 Everton.
Okay. Arsenal, Chelsea. I'll go last this one for obvious reasons. So, Nickoo, why don't you start us off for this one?
Okay. I chose this game, but I don't really know how to predict this. Yeah, I think Chelsea was very dominant against Palace. I find it hard to see an Arsenal upset here, especially the way they played against Brentford. But I do see them, picking it up a little bit. I'll go 2-1 Chelsea.
And Fionn?
I think Arsenal will go back-to-back here and go 2-0 Chelsea.
Okay, so we've got 2-1, a 2-0. I'm going to even it out and go 2-2. And the last game we're going to predict is West Ham versus Leicester. So I'll go first this one. I'll say it's going to be I'm not really sure what to expect. I'll go 1-0 to Leicester. Okay, Nickoo?
That's an interesting guess. I was thinking this might be a high-scoring affair as well, but then somehow 0-0 popped out in my head a little bit. I'm not sure why, so I'll just go for it. 0-0 draw.
Bold. And Fionn?
I'm feeling a beautiful 2-1 West Ham.
Okay. Now let's go back to the Villa Newcastle game. Who's one or two players who you think might go double digits this week? Fionn, want to start us off? So in 1-1 draw, really, there's not really many who could go double digits apart from maybe a midfielder or
my real bet would be that no one goes double digits. So
okay. Nickoo, in a 3-1 Aston Villa win, who would be your pick?
Okay. Say 3-1. I would go Ings, of course. I think Ings will do something, and I'm gonna go Leon Bailey.
Okay. In a 2-2 draw, well, I'm hoping Wilson as well with 2 goals, and then for the Villa side, I'm gonna go for Any buen dia. Okay, Leeds via Everton. Obviously, I'm hoping Patrick Bamford gets double digits, so I'll put him down as well. And I'll leave it at that. There we go. Nickoo, 2-1 Everton.
I think Calvert-Lewin for me.
So Calvert-Lewin, I'll just put DCL. And Fionn, 2-1 Leeds.
I'll go Bamford and Rafinha. Assisting each other.
Okay. Arsenal, Chelsea. 2-0 Chelsea. Fionn, who do you reckon?
Nobody.
Nobody. 2-1 Chelsea. Nickoo?
Give me a second here. Let me think. All right, I'm gonna go Rudiger.
Rudiger. And for 2-2 draw, I'm going to maybe say it's... Do you know if Lukaku's going to be on penalties, or is Jorginho going to Jorginho again?
That is a good question.
No one really.
I'm going to say
knows.
Yeah, I feel like Jorginho still has them.
Okay. West Ham, Leicester. Nickoo, a 0-0 draw. Which goal is going to get double digits?
Oh, which goalie? Let's go Schmeichel to save a Antonio pen.
Schmeichel. Okay. In a 1-0 Leicester win, I'm going to say it might be Soyuncu. And Fionn, 2-1 West Ham win.
I think Antonio's he's going to get a hat trick in a 2-1. It'd be pretty Antonio to get the 2 goals and an goal.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love it.
Enough. Okay, so that finishes our predictions for this week. I'm going to Control S that, don't forget. Okay, let's go into our final segment, which is the questions from the Senate. So are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, our first question. Is Pogba a trap?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, that was a short answer from Fionn. Yeah, we didn't even talk about him, considering he had 4 assists. But yeah, I'm leaning towards yes. He's just not consistent enough to be an FPL choice for me.
The only gripe I have with him is that he only managed 3 assists last season, and he's already on 4. Now, he was playing on the left side, but once Sancho begins starting, and once, Cavani's back and Greenwood goes out wide and then Rashford's back, I think it's a short-term punt, for sure. So if you want to grab him now, you must have a plan to get rid of him in a couple of weeks. That's the only issue I have. Like, he's not the worst pick in the world, but definitely have a backup plan in case you need to get him out in a week's notice.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of the same with how we talked about Mason earlier, that we don't really know how Ole has it planned out for the rest of the season.
Yep.
It's quite obvious that Pogba is doing well on the left wing, but he's not a true winger. So is he going to keep his spot? Is he going to be moving to the double pivot? Nobody really knows. So yeah, it's a wait and see for me. Yeah, and as you said, if you want to bring him in for a while, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, next question. Is Lukaku worth fitting in or worth trying to fit in now? Or when were people waiting for him, if at all? What's your plan for him? Are you planning to jump on later or now, or what would you do?
I could definitely see him in my team at some point, obviously. I think everyone can agree that he has the talent and he has everything it takes to become a key FPL asset, but I just see absolutely zero reason to get on now before you see his minutes, before you see how often Tuchel will kind of rotate him out of the team. Is he on penalties? Like, we know we all want Salah and Bruno at the moment, and I think a good few of us will be looking at getting Heung-min Son soon if you don't have them already. So I just don't see the appeal right now. Just a pure wait and see.
Yeah, I do think his fixtures start turning great around game week 7-ish. I think that's a fair enough time to sort of assess, how he's going to fit into that team, how he's going to affect, Timo Werner and Kai Havertz and all those guys up front as well. I think it's a good time to just sit back and wait. The only problem I have with that is when his fixtures start turning good at game week 7, people will have started wild carded by then, and people would have already jumped on by that point, and he'll no longer be a differential pick. He'll be a quite popular pick, I imagine, by that point. So if you want to sort of get a leg up on the competition, would you consider jumping on early?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I think for me, it depends where you are at right now. I think if you are firmly in the hundreds or 90 plus points, there's no real rush for you to get Lukaku. But if you feel like you're already lagging behind and you want to make up the difference fast, I think he's one of those that you could potentially look into. But I think one problem most people will have is even getting the money to fit him in, because to get him in one transfer is almost impossible, because unless you start with someone stupid like Kane, you won't have the money up front for that. Or if you bank money, sure. But if not, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to sacrifice one of either Bruno or Salah and take a -4 just to get Lukaku in this week, which I think is not worth it at the moment. So, in a combination of things, I think Lukaku is a wait and see for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to consider that they're obviously playing relegation contenders this week, so there's always a big chance of him banging. But I mean, you just kind of have to focus on not taking hits this early on.
Yeah. The next question was actually going to be about taking hits, so I think we've already answered that. Kodjo asked, if you lack some of the big guns, like for example Salah or Bruno last week, would you be opposed to taking hits to get them back and rectifying that ASAP, or would you just wait it out and just see what happens?
Do you mean like Bruno and Salah?
So I mean, like if you didn't have one of those guys last week and you were scared of going on without them, would you want to just rectify that now, take a hit, get them in, fix that now, or would you rather just make a transfer and then reassess next week with 2 transfers?
That's an interesting question. I didn't even think about that, but I'm probably leaning towards keeping the faith with your team. So I think that's something that I personally subscribe to, that you've done your due diligence before the season and you've put together a team that you feel is gonna kickstart your season as well as you hope. Yes, game week 1 turned out really bad because they both just hit the ground running, but at the same time, I think you can have a little bit of faith in your own team in terms of the other options you chose, because if you didn't choose, you only have one of them, like you have maybe Son, or you have someone else, your money spread out quite well. So I think it's not necessarily a must, I feel, to immediately jump back on them, even though the ownership is like super high.
Yeah, okay. And we'll go on to our last question. Who are each of your top 3 guys on your watch list after the first week? Nickoo, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I actually just made a watch list last night of players, and let me see. Okay, so maybe I'll just do one from like each position, maybe. So
yeah.
I won't do Antonio because I think most people have him, just because I don't. So he's on my watch list. But for forwards, I think DCL. DCL is an interesting one because I think nobody expected him to be back so soon. And Everton looked shaky preseason as well. So I think nobody was really expecting him to do that. But I think one thing that I heard on another pod is that a lot of the strategy now on Everton goes through Townsend, and Townsend just getting the ball into the box, which could bode well for DCL and his heading abilities. So I think forward, I would say Calvert-Lewin. In midfield, maybe Mbeumo, as I mentioned. I think Mbeumo for Brentford. If you're sold on the Brentford train, I think he's definitely one to look out for at 5.5 in midfield as well. I mean, if you compare him to Toney at 6.5, yeah, he might be the better choice. And finally, for defenders, I think I am looking at Livramento, the 4.0 defender at Southampton. If he gets more minutes over Walker Peters, I think he could be a pretty good long-term option at 4.0 to enable the rest of your team to, have more budget.
Yeah, I like it. Talking about Livramento, Ralph Hasenhüttl actually heaped a lot of praise on him last week, and in a 3-1 defeat, mind you. But, that's positive signs. I do think he might actually be the nailed 4.0 defender to get in a few weeks' time. And especially for the people like us who have Kostas Tsimikas as a 4.0 Liverpool player, if we want to jump on Diego Jota or a third attacker from that team, or even Robbo when he comes back, we could easily transfer Tsimikas to Livramento in a few weeks to sort of complement the trade to a third Liverpool attacker. What do you guys think of that?
Did Fionn go somewhere?
I'm here. I'm thinking. Yeah. Sorry, what I'm actually doing is looking through. I'm trying to make a little watch list.
All right, sure. Then I'll go first for this question, I guess. I think it's quite important to look out for any 4.0s that pop up. I think people are also looking at Hover, I think. Hover, I don't know how to pronounce his name, at Wolves. He started that game as well, I believe. Played 90 minutes, but I think he's up against Semedo. So we'll see on that front as well. But yeah, being able to switch out your Tsimikas or even Amarty, if you're still winning with him, I think it's going to be pretty important down the road.
Yeah, okay. Just one more on my watch list. Obviously, Livramento was on mine, so that's one. My second player was Ryan Bertrand. I know he missed last week through an illness or an injury. I wasn't really that clear. But throughout pre-season, he looked absolutely phenomenal. He was on all set pieces. He was getting assists. He was linking up really well with Harvey Barnes and Jamie Vardy and all those guys. I think if he starts starting ahead of Luke Thomas, he could be the guy to get if you want to be Leicester defender.
Is there not a big? Is he not completely second choice though? Behind Castagne?
Well, I don't know how that's going to happen, because obviously you got Ricardo on the right, you've got Castagne there as well, and on the left you got Bertrand as well as Luke Thomas. But Bertrand looks absolutely phenomenal. I'd be surprised if Roger didn't actually give him a shot at some stage. But the only gripe I have is that he was taking all the set pieces in pre-season, but where does that leave Maddison? So that's something I want to have a look at before I jump on.
Yeah. Well, if he's looking like he's playing, then he could be very interesting.
Yeah, that's it. And my third player was Bryan Mbeumo, who Nickoo touched on earlier. I think he's just one to watch with the whole the link up between him and Toney, the comparison between Kane and Son last year. But we'll see how it goes. I think Mbeumo, he did miss quite a few good chances last week, so at least they're coming to him. But we'll see how he fares. Okay, and lastly, Fionn, are you ready to have your three?
Yeah, it's a pretty boring one, all things considered. But I suppose in the midfield, well, I won't really count Sarr because we kind of talked about him, and obviously he's interesting, but he's definitely in my thoughts. But the main three I was thinking of were definitely Heung-min Son. I'm struggling to see how I won't own him. like quite soon. He just looks ridiculously dangerous. I think he had like 5 shots on target or something against City. I don't know if either of you were watching, but he looked a bit ridiculous. And then second, I have Adam Armstrong from Southampton. 6 million. It seems like maybe a bit of an underpricing. I don't know if what you guys think of that, but
I do actually really like him.
Yeah. And then the same as Nickoo, I have DCL in there because I wasn't very confident on Everton, and I still amn't. But it was, as Nickoo said, the crosses. I think they dropped 17 crosses into the box, and DCL just lives in the 6-yard area. So it's hard to see, even if Everton play awful, if they're dropping that many chances in for him. He's going to be taking a few, and he's already taken one. So
yeah, for sure. He might even be a good transfer for Ings before game week 4 when Villa's fixtures turn sour, to say the least. It's certainly worse guys to pick than DCL. We know what he's capable of.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not feeling one of your strikers, it doesn't feel like we're sort of places to move with. Like you said, you may be like looking at getting rid of Ings. You can look at Antonio, Jimenez, Armstrong, DCL. Like, there's no shortage.
Yeah, I quite like the Armstrong pick there as well. I think he's interesting at 6.0. My issue is that it's Southampton, and I think this season Southampton look like they're going to struggle for most of the year. So I'm not too hot on them. Another name I'm just going to throw in there is St. Maximin. I think he was really surprising against West Ham. I think it's just a worry that he is kind of like trappy level, like Wilson, especially because Newcastle always gives that feel that they'll do well for a few games and then they'll just drop off for half the season. So I will be wary about that. Plus, he's not cheap; he's like 6.5. But yeah, I'll throw his name in there as well.
It's definitely an interesting one because when he plays, he looks electric, and he looks like he should be playing for a top level team. But then, yeah, like you say, he just goes missing halfway through games, and you think, where is he, or what is he doing? And then all of a sudden he's injured, and then he's not injured, and then he is again, and then I don't know. I don't think I could do it personally.
Also, one for the watch list, which is someone I thought we wouldn't have to think about for a while, but KDB, came back to 78 minutes or whatever it was. It doesn't feel like it's going to be long before it feels like everyone has to have him or something like that,
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I think you mentioned 2 names there, Son and KDB. I think the only reason why I haven't even considered them is purely because I just don't have the money. So it's kind of just lucky in that sense that, I don't have to worry about that. But you're right. I think both Son and KDB could easily get double digits in each game that they play. So, yeah, look out for them once their teams get up to top 4.
Okay, so I think that's it. Is there anything else that anyone wants to touch on before we finish up?
No.
Not really. I
think we're all good.
Yes, I think we're good. I mean, could I also just maybe ask, poll you guys, who are you guys captaining this week? I think that's my main decision this week.
Yeah, that's fair. I've currently got it on Bruno, only because the last time Man United played Southampton, it was a 9-0 drubbing. So, Southampton don't have a very good record against United. I think there's going to be goals. There's going to be loads of goals. And also, I found an interesting stat that the last time Mo Salah registered a goal or an assist against Burnley was 2017.
Yeah, I think the stat is that Salah has 1 goal in his past 7 appearances against Burnley.
Yeah.
I still have it on Salah for some reason. I feel like, with the Anfield crowd coming back, he is potentially going to do something, but you're right. I think it's going to be interesting with Bruno at Southampton, 9-year previously, and I think there was even a big Twitter thread comparing Southampton to Burnley defenses, and I think it's pretty obvious that Southampton's defense is way more poor than Burnley's, especially with Vestergaard and Bertrand leaving. So that's something to consider.
I agree. I do trust Sean Dyche to play more conservatively and will manage his defence to counter, well, not counter, but to deal with the threat of Salah, Jota, Firmino, Mane, etc. Whereas Hasenhüttl just seems to play so naively most of the time. I don't think he quite understands how to play as the weaker team. I think he expects his team to be the strongest team all the time, and it backfires more often than not.
Yeah, Hasenhüttl, for some reason, really likes the high line, like the high press.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could play right into United's hands, to be honest. So this might sway me to go Bruno instead.
Yeah, we saw last week how those dink balls from Pogba and Bruno just running straight through like a knife through butter. So we'll see how that happens this week.
Yeah, sounds good. Anything more to add, Fionn?
Well, I'm set on Salah. I'm fairly, I believe quite strongly in that, I suppose you'd say. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think Bruno's a bad pick. I feel more confident in Salah, and I don't know if any of you or either of you use FPL Review. I follow them on Twitter, but they're just a very good website and very good account and tool for FPL. But he's dropped a fun stat because it's raining this weekend in Liverpool, and Salah's non-penalty XG per 90 in the rain is 0.61, and his non-penalty XG per 90 on a sunny day is only 0.56. So I'm expecting huge returns from Salah.
Interesting. I hadn't actually thought about that before, so it's interesting to think about that. I might have a look at that account later. All right. Well, I think that's probably enough for today. I think we're all sort of excited for this weekend, and hopefully a bit more deviance in the scores than last week. I think it was more so it was like template versus not template. So hopefully, if some captains Bruno, some captains Salah, it might be a bit more evenly split. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Thank you to our guests today, Nickoo and Fionn. I'm hoping to do this regularly, but timing is of the essence, and sometimes timing does not always work out. I understand that. So we'll try and do as many as we can this year, but thank you to my two guests for making the time to come on. I do appreciate it. Anyone want to say anything before we close off?
Just thank you for keeping this going. It's fun to do, and I think this kind of structure is good. We keep it nice and quick, and it kind of gets all the main bits done.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Really glad to be back. I think I kind of missed this, having a busy work schedule for the past year or so. So really glad to be back. Thanks for the invite.
My pleasure, guys.
And also best of luck to Lucian, because I know he definitely would have liked to be doing this. If he was able